Hey everybody, good morning. Happy Tuesday. I'm attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. I'm always here with you guys on Tuesdays in English and Thursdays in Spanish to talk about all things immigration and to answer your live questions. As a reminder, my law firm is my last name, Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. We are an immigration law firm and we focus on immigrant families, bringing families together and keeping them together. We're based in Austin, Texas. That's where I am right now talking to you. But immigration law is federal and we represent clients in all 50 United States. And we're also a virtual law firm. So if you know someone who needs help, feel free to reach out. You can send me a DM, however you're watching me right now on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. Wherever you are, you can DM me. My team is behind the scenes available to help get you guys set up. We have free legal consultations. That is still happening. We started that after the election when it became clear that more immigrants were going to need access to good legal information. We decided not to charge for our consultations, and that continues. So we have about 50 slots a day for consultations, and we're filling up a calendar, a day or two out. So you can get in still pretty quickly with us if you need a consultation, and we'll be happy to help you think through whether you can get legal status, what type of case you might qualify for, obviously how much it costs, how long it takes, what kind of evidence you might need. But also, and this is a very important part of this, is how you can protect yourself in the meantime, because one of the top news items is about SB4 in Texas. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. And so now more than ever, especially for people in Texas, even dreamers, even people in legal status, you guys need to know and exercise your own constitutional rights, because we have now seen an expansion of enforcement of immigration, not just when ICE goes and apprehends someone or conducts a raid. We now have law enforcement after all things immigration in Texas. So let's get straight to that. But again, if you need information that's confidential, protected, you don't want to ask a question in a live video, no worries, just send me a DM and we can get you set up for a consultation. So SB4, there's two SB4 laws in Texas. There's the one from 2017 that we've heard about for a long time, and that's the one that tells all cities and localities in Texas that they can't refuse to cooperate with ICE. So this is why we haven't seen mayors, city council, police departments come out as sort of sanctuary places in Texas, is because SB4, which is a state law, restricts their ability to do that. And that law, I believe it was challenged, but it survived challenge in court, and it's been in effect for, almost 10 years. The second SB4, which is just, when the legislative process starts and all the bills get filed, there's HB this and SB that, and it's just the order in which these bills are filed and prioritized. And so SB4 just is another Senate bill from a different legislative session. That's why it has the same name. So SB4 from 2023 is in my opinion, very illegal and unconstitutional law that unfortunately just last Friday got released in full effect by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. It has been blocked by the courts because it's unconstitutional. But the Fifth Circuit, in a little ping pong back and forth between the federal court and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is over Texas and Louisiana, essentially they lifted the stay, which means they allowed the law to go into full effect on Friday. Well, how does that matter? This SB4, what it does is it creates a state level immigration regime, right? Because immigration law historically since forever has been federal. It's up to the Department of Homeland Security or INS or CBP, these federal agencies to control the border, to enforce immigration laws. And the state of Texas really wants to have its own deportation machine, which is incredibly costly and fraught for so many reasons. The main one is that a basic tenet of constitutional law is that you don't have the states running something that the feds are over, right? It creates conflicts between the two jurisdictions. And that's what is going to happen here, because SB4, what it does is it creates a state level crime for illegal entry. So anybody who's entered the country, who's found to have entered the country illegal, or the state, I should say, illegally, can now be charged with a state level crime. And also can be deported by a state level judge. So the state of Texas, under this law, can order people deported and then actually deport them. And I was in the committee hearings when this law was being debated, and all of this, pushback was coming up about, like, how is the state of Texas going to deport somebody to, Ghana? And I think it was one of the authors of the bill, it was a conservative legislator in the committee where the hearing was being held, was like, well, we'll just take them all to the border of Mexico. Like, literally the state, when asked how they were going to effectuate this, said, we're just going to drive everybody to the border to Mexico. It doesn't take two brain cells to figure out what the problems with that are, that creates international relations issues. Again, that should be a question for the federal government. We should not have the state of Texas having international relations conversations and problems with the country of Mexico. You can see the problem there. That's why, another reason why immigration law is federal. Anyway, here we are. The very conservative Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has released this law. And so starting immediately, everybody in the state of Texas can be detained, arrested, interrogated, charged for illegal entry, and then ultimately deported by a state judge. And obviously, unless an officer sees someone walk across the border, they're going to have to engage in racial profiling. They're going to have to use things like somebody's skin color, somebody's language, somebody's accent, somebody's type of work that they do. Are they going to start going to construction sites? These are all things that have come up in litigation that the Supreme Court allowed in California last year. I'm not pulling this stuff out of the air. And so now any law enforcement authority in the entire state of Texas, they're not, what we have had is that we've had these cooperative agreements, like with the DPS state troopers or the Gillespie County Sheriff, right? They have these 287G agreements, if they sign it, where they say, we're going to enforce on some level immigration laws, federal immigration laws. And so they enter into these, like, work together agreements with ICE. Now it's even more widespread because they're not enforcing immigration laws necessarily. They are enforcing state criminal laws, just like they would a DWI or a domestic violence assault. Illegal entry is now in the Texas Criminal Code. So I hope you understand, that's now every police officer, every constable, every sheriff, every state trooper, every police authority within the state of Texas that investigates and detains people for crime can start investigating and detaining people for illegal entry. So what that means is that more and more of our constitutional rights are going to be violated. The Fourth Amendment right, not to, rule against search and seizure, the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. These are things that we have to know and we have to enforce in our interactions with law enforcement authorities in the state of Texas. So all this, like, know your rights stuff, the red cards, the having a lawyer on hand, having a safety packet, a plan where the family, where the important documents are, who the emergency contact is, who the attorney is, not to give your consent to come inside your home, to search your vehicle, to search your person. When they're asking you questions about how did you enter the country, you say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and I want to speak to a lawyer. You have to start just knowing this stuff and saying this stuff. All of us, right? Here's another thing I think, not just like immigrants, all of us, native-born U.S. citizens, permanent residents, all of us need to say, if you're being asked about how you entered this country, with respect, I am going to remain silent under my constitutional rights. And I prefer to speak to a lawyer. Because remember, Unless they see you walking across that border, how else are they going to have information unless they racially profile you and you admit? So remain silent. That is your right. That is just basic, important advice for everybody in this country. And I hope that you guys hear this, how strongly this message is coming from me to you, because we are in a new Texas with an SB4 law in place, and that means all law enforcement officers are investigating immigrant violations. And hopefully there's litigation updates on SB4, but for right now, it's serious business. And I guess now's a good time to remind you guys, we have been developing Know Your Rights materials that are free for the community for a while now. And my website, I don't know if I'm allowed to say my website. Sometimes I get dinged when I try and list a website or a phone number. So rather than say it here on the live, just DM me. But we've got free safety planning packets, workplace safety packets, etc. We'll be happy to share those with you guys for no charge. I feel like there was another news. I did a video on this yesterday. And then this is another point. If you're not already following me and you want to keep up with this stuff, just go ahead and follow me, because I do videos on updates every day. There was a bunch of hullabaloo about the adjustment of status memo, where USCIS came out with a memo. Was it last Friday? Friday before? I don't remember. They all run together, in which they said no longer are people eligible for adjustment of status. Net. That was the message that they were sending across. But essentially that you have to show that you warrant a favorable exercise of discretion. Basically, you deserve to be able to get your green card in the country without having to leave. And a bunch of people just panic, like, oh my God, I'm not eligible for my green card. These are employment-based adjustments, family-based adjustments, DACA recipients, etc. And then DHS has sort of walked back that memo in a public statement where they're saying, we're not saying that you're not eligible, because that would be illegal, which is what we were all saying. But what we are saying is that officers have discretion. And so what we're seeing in practice with our clients is that they are asking discretion-based questions in the interviews, like, did you overstay your visa? And if so, why? Can you consular process? If not, why not? And that would get to like, oh, I'd lose my job, or I'd be separated from my kids. And that we are starting to prepare for our clients what we're calling discretion packets, where we're including evidence of all the reasons why you deserve the adjustment. It's basically a good moral character packet. So it's good news that DHS sort of walked back the memo, because the memo was illegally and strongly worded, and all of us were like, excuse me, what? This is in direct contradiction to what Congress said in the statute. Like, that doesn't go. And then they did sort of walk it back in a public statement. So that's partial good news. And we're still seeing a lot of approvals come through on adjustments. So there's some other good news for you. With that, I think my assessment of the other news of the week is that it's about hard stuff. But the theme of the news of this week is resistance. Pushback and resistance is occurring, and keep it up. This is what we've been talking about when they shifted their enforcement from very loud and shooting people in the head on the streets to quiet disappearing of people after traffic stops. Most people stopped becoming aware that all of these family separations and constitutional rights violations were occurring. But I was at least relieved to see in the news stories of this week that it does seem to be getting through of the violations that are going on. Starting with the Delaney Detention Center in New Jersey, if you've been keeping up with that, there have been I think there are 300 people. It's 1,000 beds. But there are 300 people in Delaney, and everything started with a hunger strike. And things are really bad when the detainees go on a hunger strike, right? Like this is the only way they have to get their message across. But not only are the common complaints there for Delaney, which is like poor medical care, inadequate conditions, too hot, too cold, bad food, those are not unique to Delaney. But what is unique at Delaney is that the detainees are reporting that they are being tear gassed and beaten on a regular basis by the jailers. This is a facility run by the GEO Group, which is one of the two biggest private prison companies in the US. And in a statement, they referred to all their detainees as the illegal aliens, blah, blah, blah. So it just like shows you the mentality of the people in charge of the care for these people in these detention centers, that they're just referring to them not as human beings, not even as detainees, but as illegal aliens. How do they know that? They don't know that. These are people who are going through some legal process, and all of the data and the statistics have shown the vast majority of these people do not have a criminal history whatsoever. So that just is like enough of a tip for me to know that this is true. Also that they're hunger striking. Also that the family members are reporting that their loved ones are being tear gassed. Also that the protesters outside of the facility are being beaten and tear gassed. So it stands to reason that they're also doing that inside the building. So, but I'm so relieved. It's weird to use the word relief about the situation, but relieved that there are protesters who are out there putting their lives on the line, elevating this issue, and they've heard the cry for help from the detainees in their hunger strike, and they are responding with their own selves, their own bodies, their own safety, and they're going to these places and engaging in legal protests. That's civic engagement. Next news item is similarly, attention and justice. So this is about a guy named Christian Castro. He was was he ICE? Yeah, he was an ICE agent who was sent to Minnesota. He was chasing a guy down the street, shot his gun through the door of a home, and hit another person in the leg. And when he got called out for shooting someone, an innocent bystander, he lied and said that this person was trying to fight them like with a shovel. And then, of course, the video evidence came out and contradicted what he had said. And so now, has he been arrested? He was arrested and is being charged. So that's good news. We like to hear that. Next good news item. We know that Boston has been really great as a sanctuary city, and they can do that. They're in the state of Massachusetts. They don't have a Texas legislature, constantly like knocking them on the head with a hammer. But they do have the Trump administration coming after them, and the Trump administration sued the city of Boston over its sanctuary policies. Essentially, we don't cooperate with ICE. We don't let them in our jails. That's what their policy said. And the federal judge who was overseeing the lawsuit, the DOJ lawsuit against Boston, tossed the lawsuit out. Didn't even get to the merits of the case. So that was a good news. And then the final news item, this is a hard one, with trigger warning around suicide. Suicides, of course, are up in immigration detention. Since October, 7 deaths have been classified as suicides. This is almost more than any fiscal year so far in the agency's history. So super exponential growth in deaths overall in immigration detention, including death by suicide. So that's your news of the week. Team, let me get to, I got a call, can't talk today, which is not good when you're doing a live show. When your words aren't coming. Words are helpful when you're doing a live show, but anyhow, maybe I'll get it together. Okay, here we've got TikTok. With a pending case, will we be protected? I assume you're referring to the SB4 law in Texas, and here's what I want to say no. There is some nuance within the SB4 law about who can be deported, charged or deported. So generally, like if you have a green card, right, you shouldn't be deported by the state of Texas. But the other thing is, this is a complicated system, right? And so the state of Texas and magistrate judges and police officers are not trained or knowledgeable about what it means to be in lawful status, about whether you have a VAWA pending or a DACA with a renewal, or all of these various, like an I-140 approval or a T visa bona fide, like all of these things that are complex. And this is why it's in the hand of federal authorities, who oftentimes they even get it wrong. Now we're asking already maxed and strapped Texas law enforcement authorities to also understand and apply the immigration system, and they won't be able to do it. And 100% sure they will not be able to do it properly. And so therefore what that means is that people in legal status will be caught up in this Texas law for sure. I have no doubt about that. And that's another reason why we got to know our rights. Do not, speak to them, remain silent, don't sign anything, ask for a lawyer, refuse a search, like just enforce your rights when you are in these situations. And then always, I say this so much, I'll say it again, get as much evidence of everything that's happening as you can. Get a dash cam for your car that will automatically record if you get pulled over. Get a, maybe not ring cam, but get a camera on your front porch that will record if the police come to your house. This is mostly going to be done, I think, via traffic stop, maybe some worksite raids. So in those situations, if you don't have a dash cam, you do need to pull out your phone and record, because I anticipate that people's rights are going to be violated. And here's the thing, when you're in an interaction with a law enforcement officer and they're violating your rights, you're not going to talk them out of it. You're not going to be like, excuse me, here's my red card, you need to change your behavior. And this, power hungry officer is all of a sudden going to be like, oh, it says on this card that you're protected by the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, I better start being respectful. They're not going to do that. They're going to keep going. And so the idea is that you do everything you can and record the interaction, and then later either you get your charges thrown out, you get released, you bring a lawsuit, you get or bring justice for yourself down the line because you have evidence of what happened. And sometimes the officers have body cam footage that you can get, but that takes a while. So I would say consider your responsibility to yourself and anybody you see getting arrested is that of an evidence gatherer. So notes about time, date, place, how many officers, what are they wearing, what did they say, what are their badge numbers, what cars are they driving. I mean, I'm working on a case right now. I've been public about it, so you might have heard about it. Brian Morales, the U.S. citizen who was deported, he was originally detained by DPS. Then the Gillespie County Sheriff got involved. Then CBP got involved, and he was transferred to several places. And he, as we're trying to piece together the timeline of events, that's a difficult thing. It's like, I don't know which officer that was. What color was their car? What color were their outfits? Like, in having all of that recorded and written down, if you can, will later, I can promise you, be very helpful. And that advice that I have had for you guys all through this horrible experience that we're in is only stronger advice with SB4, okay? Because it's only going to explode and expand what's happening. So to answer your question, TikTok user, yes, I think that people with cases pending are going to be caught up in SB4, including DACA recipients. So another one in TikTok. This is in Spanish. I'll repeat it in English. Metí un caso octubre 2025 de Visa T. No recibido mis recibos. Es normal. Sí, es normal. Lo que vimos es que hasta octubre la oficina de Vermont, que era la oficina recibiendo los paquetes, estaba muy atrasado en el procesamiento de sus paquetes. Y en noviembre cambiaron a otras oficinas. Entonces ahora las solicitudes metidas después de noviembre se mueven más rápido. Es como 2 o 3 meses para los recibos. Pero hasta octubre siguen con la oficina en Vermont. Entonces la espera puede ser hasta 6 a 9 meses. Entonces es normal no tener los recibos todavía, pero deben llegar pronto. This is someone who applied for a T visa in October of last year and still hasn't gotten a receipt notice and wants to know if this is normal. And what I was explaining, and I just learned this last week when our humanitarian attorney Pam came and did the show with me, is that the Vermont Service Center, which was the office that processed all of the like U visa, T visa, VAWA cases, they were really backlogged in the mailroom. Basically, this opening of the packet, processing the case, and so it's taking months and months and months just to get a receipt notice. And so in November, they changed the mailing address and we started sending cases to different addresses. And the new addresses ever since November are much quicker. But the cases filed up through October are still really delayed. So believe it or not, it is normal to still not have your receipt notice from an October filing. A couple things you can do. If you filed a waiver with your application that had a filing fee, then you will be able to check your bank for your case number. So that's one way to check it. And then hopefully you mailed your packet with tracking and you can confirm that it was received. So those are just ways to sort of confirm that everything's okay. Okay, here's a really good and important question. What documents should my family have ready in case of an immigration emergency? So the first thing I would say is to have a safety planning packet. We have one on my website that's for free. I took what I liked from all of the other ones. There's, so many nonprofits, Texas ILC, ILRC, other nonprofits have put together safety planning packets and they're all good. ACLU. So you can just get any one of those packets and just follow along the checklist. But essentially what you need after a consultation with a lawyer is you need to protect the kids. So who's in charge of the kids if mom or dad get detained? That's number one. Then number two, the documents that I would have on hand are all of your civil documents. So your birth certificate, social security cards, or ITINs if you have it. Any birth records can be helpful, baptismal records, marriage certificates, divorce decrees, any immigration paperwork that you have, receipt notices, approval notices, cards, expired cards, and then you can have anything related to your house, your lease, your mortgage, your bank statement, your phone bill, like any official document that also documents sort of your regular life. You can think about it as like, I was talking to someone recently who's in a couple. This is a wife of a man who was hospitalized. And she was like, it occurred to me that he handles so many things and I don't even really know what he handles. And that fear on top of, is he going to be okay, was so much extra stress and worry. And so if you think about it like that, like this is just in case this person goes away, gets sick, gets detained, etc. It's not just about, can I get this person out of detention? It's like, can I pick up and keep our life going? So think about it that way too, like a catalog of all of the bills that have to be paid, the logins for the different accounts, the spare keys, have all of that organized and in a safe place, because the scramble that occurs when somebody gets detained and you're trying to get them out, figure out if they want to stay and fight or accept a deportation, and pick up the pieces of your existing life without them in it is like, oof, it's a lot. So thinking ahead and planning for that is very, very wise, and you will hopefully never need it. But also if you do, you will very much thank yourself that you did it. Okay, next question. What options are available for people who have lived in the U.S. for many years? There's a lot of options, and this is why every individual needs a consultation with a lawyer. But generally there's employment-based options. If you have a professional job and they want to petition for you and you don't have unlawful presence or work without authorization, or if you do, you could get a waiver. There's some options in the employment category. It's a little bit stricter though, okay? Then there's family-based options. If you have a spouse, parent, child, sibling who is a U.S. citizen, or a spouse or parent who's a permanent resident, you can apply for a green card through that family relationship. But sometimes there's bars if you have unlawful presence, or wait times for your priority date. Those cases can be kind of delayed and complicated, so you need a consultation. And then there's the whole humanitarian type of case. So crime victims, victims of labor abuse, right? We're in an abusive situation at the workplace. Victims of domestic violence, fear of return to your country like asylum. Those are a whole other category of cases, and those are more flexible. They contain more waivers. You can waive entries and exits. You can waive criminal activity. So oftentimes people who don't qualify employment or family could still qualify in humanitarian. And these are things that you won't know until you consult with an immigration lawyer and talk through. And another benefit of going to a lawyer as opposed to an internet search or going to visit a notario or talking to your friend is that everything you say to a lawyer is confidential. It's part of our ethical obligation. And so you can divulge and reveal everything that you are worried about, and let a lawyer help you really sift through, like, okay, you might have this option and this option, but this other option is going to be the better one for you because you're not going to face risks in these ways. And oftentimes we tell people that it's not worth it. Like, oh, you could technically be eligible for this thing, but I wouldn't recommend filing because it's going to place you at risk. Those are things that you're going to hear in a good consultation as well, is help you really understand like the comprehensive situation that you're in and what the best course of action is, and help you make an informed decision about the future of your life. It's really, really important. And this is something that I feel so strongly about because I've seen so many people suffer for not having taken this step, for hiring a notario or not hiring somebody. And then, 2 years down the line, their case has been denied, delayed, they're separated from their family, and it's painful. It's painful to talk to somebody who took one mini wrong step, mini like small, a while ago that you could have seen and corrected had they given you the chance to talk back then. And now here we are trying to clean up a mess. So really, I just urge people who are in a situation with an immigration question to talk to a lawyer. I mean, just yesterday, I talked to somebody that I wish I could have gotten to at least 6 months ago, and this person's life would be completely different right now. So there's a bit of like a heartbreak that I have in remembering all of the stories that I've heard of people who didn't do this and the pain that it's caused them. So that's why I feel so strongly about it. Okay, next question. This is an easy one. What should I do if I receive an immigration letter and I do not understand it? Call me or DM me. We do this all the time. And there's a lot of fraudulent letters going around. Just this morning, I saw one in one of my attorney Facebook groups, and it was like I think it was a letter from maybe the DOJ or the Executive Office for Immigration Review. It had like the letterhead of a government agency, but then the font was Comic Sans. It's like really like you couldn't even, use a normal font. But, and I've seen people who have invested money and gotten fake receipt notices and, or just been scammed with notices from the government. So anytime you get a letter from the government, I would go review that with the lawyer, and we'll help you determine whether it's real and what you should do about it anytime. Yes. Okay. Last question, and then I'm going to give you your tip of the week. I am an undocumented adult and entered the country illegally. Many years ago, I met a U.S. citizen couple, and I have cared for them for a long time. They want me to stay in the country and would like to adopt me as their child. Could that help adjust my legal status, or what options might I have? No, that's not going to help you as an adult. An adoption, generally, adoptions are not helpful for immigration. Every once in a while, you get a couple countries where the other country is not party to the Hague Convention. And then you could do an adoption and then 2 years later do a green card. But I can tell you, in my 20 years of practice, I could count on both fingers the amount of green cards I've gotten through adoption. Generally, it's just very restricted mechanism for getting legal status, especially for an adult. So that's not going to work. I would encourage you to come talk to us about other options that you might have, because you've been here a long time. You have this potential employment offer, but what about family? What about humanitarian? I'd like to have a consultation with you to explore other options. This is next question. I know I told you one more, but let me just do this one too. What happens if my work permit expires? you have to technically stop working. Your license is going to expire. It puts you at risk of removal. So you want to really think about your renewals of your work permits at least 6 months early these days, and act early. Okay. This is Instagram. Have you heard if approvals in San Antonio are still on pause? What's today? Tuesday? It's interesting. No, we're still getting some approvals, but they're not approving them in the interview. They're going through the supervisors, and there was some big change scheduled for yesterday. Tell you what, follow me on Instagram if you don't already, and I will talk to my team of lawyers and find out what we saw yesterday in the office and do a video on that. Okay. Because they were reporting like everything's going to be different on Monday, and today's Tuesday, and I don't remember hearing anything about what happened yesterday. So let me look into that and I'll get back to you. Alrighty, guys, let's get to our action item of the week. Oh, look at me. I'm so smart. I already covered this. So SB4 is the new law in Texas that creates a state level crime for illegal entry. That means more police authorities are going to be investigating immigration stuff. So every Texan has a red card and a dash cam. That's your assignment, especially if you are a person of color, if you work in a blue collar day job, if you have an accent, or if you speak another language. Red card, dash cam in your vehicle. Go get it done this week, and nos vemos el jueves en español. See you guys on Thursday in Spanish. Bye.